An important announcement. Repeat, an important announcement. This is not a spoiler-free episode. Repeat, this is not a spoiler-free episode. Some of the endings to the greatest movies of all time will be discussed here. Listener discretion is advised. All right, everybody, welcome to another fine, fun episode of Film Nobs. I am one of your co-hosts, Barry B. Man Benning, and sitting across from me,
I am Richard, the Morganator Morgan.
And we are here to, believe it or not, talk about movies.
Are we?
Yes.
Is that what the show's about?
Well, today's show is going to be about movies. Who knows what next week's show will be about? But I think this week, let's stick to movies. And speaking of movies, have you seen anything, or is there any kind of news that's come up since we've last met in this room in front of these mics?
It's good to be Disney.
It is good. Yeah, it's good to be king, right? The Lion King. And I guess, what are we at now? We've hit the $1 billion.
I believe so. It's earlier this week.
The $1 billion mark.
And Disney's already trounced last year's box office.
Yeah, and here we are in August.
Right.
And let's see here. What's left? We still got Artemis Fowl, Maleficent, Frozen 2.
Right.
And some dinky little movie.
Star
Wars, something. So, yeah, we posited in an earlier show this year, I believe, maybe our first show of the year, that we had wondered if Disney could hit the $10 billion mark and the 30% of the market share, and it looks like they're well on their way to doing that. Certainly the 10 billion mark, I think, is well within reach. I'm not for sure if I don't know what kind of market share they've got right now. We'll have to maybe send...
I'm sure it's the lion's share.
Bam.
I try.
We need somebody with a drum set right in the corner over there. They would get a lot of work. It's not like they would just sit over there for most of the show and not have anything to do. They would be...
Yeah, we could have a live band.
We should. We should have a live band, right? If Jay Leno could have had one, right? And well, now everybody's got a live band. What?
Yeah.
We need our roots.
It's like some people have an entourage, and the next level is to have a band.
So, who do we get to lead our band? How about Danny Elfman? Can we get him to come in and lead the band? He's done a few soundtracks.
That's right.
Before,
That's right. Which is a nod to a future episode.
Oh yes, indeed. We might have to have at the end. We might have to bring up that topic. It's going to be a fun one. Mm-hmm. But what about today's show?
Well, I'm catching up on movies from 2018, apparently. So, as I told you before we started recording, I finally watched The Dark Tower, right. The Predator, and Venom.
Oh, you're just a
glutton.
Right, exactly.
So, as I was watching The Predator, an idea came to me for today's topic.
Okay.
There's two possible titles, but they kind of mean the same thing. So, the first title is The Genie Out of the Bottle, or How to Keep Hollywood Fresh. And it hit me when I was watching The Predator, because when the original Predator movie came out, the Predator was like a real badass monster, creature, alien.
Right, and one that we didn't get to see at the beginning. The suspense was built up on what exactly is this thing, right?
It took out an entire, elite platoon of elite soldiers.
Right.
It almost, killed Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was, the biggest action star at the time.
That's right. And it did kill Carl Weathers and Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura. Some really bad dudes.
Right. And fast forward to The Predator.
Right.
and he's just a joke. He's a throwaway joke because through the evolution or de-evolution of the franchise, he's a wimp.
I like the sight of you. You know, usually this sounds like this would be me talking, the venomous. But no. Yeah. All right, I'm liking this episode already.
So,
wait a minute though. Hold on. You know I like to argue too. So you're saying, all right. So the first Predator, we almost kill Schwarzenegger,
right?
And we do kill a host of
right,
badass guys.
Guys that we care about, I might add. Characters and actors we actually cared about.
But hold on, you don't think these actors are either bad or you don't care? I mean, Thomas Jane, Keegan Michael Key, Jake Busey, Sterling K. Brown. So those guys aren't they don't measure up to.
They were more like stereotypical characters more so than
right.
So the actors themselves did a fine performance. It's just the characters themselves you don't really care about.
No, I agree. Yeah, I saw.
And then the Predator is a whipping post for the Alpha Predator or whatever they call the.
Right, it's just a bigger,
yeah,
just a blown up version of the. Yeah,
and so it's like everything's just become a joke.
Right. A bad one, and one that I'd rather not paid $11
which
or whatever.
This also harkens back to our franchise on franchises that we talked about. How the good franchises picked up momentum, and then somewhere along the way, some of them faded off because they couldn't keep the momentum, or they couldn't keep it fresh.
So you're talking about. We're going to talk about then. We're going to talk about how movies keep the momentum up once they have the big reveal, and
right?
Not just the movie itself,
right.
Maybe, but depending on what the reveal is, it could be a series of movies. Mm-hmm. So, what's the genie? Like you said, all right. So, what'd you say?
Once the genie's out of the bottle,
right? How do you keep people continually interested? And okay, all right. So we've started off with so none of the movies in the Predator series for you. Would you say that none of the Predator movies measure up to
the first one?
The first one.
No. Our cohort and I have talked about this. Where Predator, and I think you even said it. Where Predator 2 isn't a great movie, but it's like a guilty pleasure.
Right. It's one of those you can turn on at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
And find some form of right.
Now I liked AVP.
Oh, you see,
it's not a great movie.
Road divides.
It's not a great movie, but there's something about it that was entertaining for me.
For you, yeah.
Now Requiem, horrible movie, horrible, disastrous movie.
Yeah, I didn't like. I haven't liked it. Predators. I didn't like that with Good Lens, the star of The Pianist. The kisser of Halle Berry, Adrian Brody. Oh my gosh, what is going on today? This show may be more entertaining for
the wrong reasons.
For the reason we don't want it to be entertaining. Hopefully, at the very least, this will be our Predator 2 and not the Predator.
Right.
Turn the show on. All right, everybody. I don't know when you're listening, right now, but just go ahead and wait until 11 o'clock tonight. We promise it'll sound better. All right, so why did Predator fail after the big reveal? What's the problem there?
The question always is, where do you go from here? So if you compare like Predator to the Alien franchise, right? So you go from Alien to Aliens. The big reveal was, okay, we've already seen the alien monster in Alien.
Although we never really, even in the end, we didn't get, a great long views of it, right?
And in Aliens, there's a line referring to the alien queen where they say, well, we haven't seen it yet. You know, like there's something else bigger, badder out there. We haven't seen it yet.
Right.
And so then in Aliens, once you see the queen, you know, that's like
another big reveal, right?
It's where do you go from here?
And you know where they've gone from there? Downhill.
Exactly.
But the second one did. You're right. The second one, and plus, I tell you how else you combat that. All right, we've had the big reveal, and now what do we do? So yeah, they built up the queen mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they also made, Cameron was smart enough to have kind of a different take. It wasn't the haunted house 1950s horror movie. It was, an all-out action, it's just an action war movie, basically just set in space for a good portion of it.
And you jump over to the Terminator franchise, same kind of thing. The big reveal is, there's this monster machine man, from the future, this killer robot. That's the big reveal. So what do you do for Terminator 2? Oh, well, he's obsolete.
And also I think people, and I can't remember how, you see, back in 91, I wasn't really looking at, trailers or taking a whole lot of stock, or I wasn't reading about this movie in advance, right? Mm-hmm. Not like I wasn't inundated with information from all sides about what's going to be in this movie. And so I, like a whole lot of other people, maybe, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see what you say. I was going in that movie, I expected Arnold Schwarzenegger to, be the villain again. And, hey, wait, lo and behold, well, he's not. And they kind of set up like he was going to be the villain, if memory serves me right. And the reveal there was, no, he's not the villain. He's the savior, or he's going to try to be the savior. And that the new machine, the sleeker, slimmed down machine played by Robert Patrick, is actually the villain.
Right. And so after T2, where do you go? Right?
Right.
So that seems to be the paradigm.
Although I kind of did like, I don't have anything against T3. It wasn't as good as the first two, but, I'll accept that movie. What about you? I don't know if we've talked about T3 a whole lot.
The Rise of the Machines?
Right.
I wouldn't put it in the same category as
no.
1 and 2, but I
would still give that.
I enjoy it.
That's like a 2.5, 3 star, out of 4 movie. Not a bad movie.
And then Salvation came after that.
Yeah.
And now Dark Fate's coming out this year.
Well,
Genesis. I forgot Terminator Genesis.
I think everybody wants to forget. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that the makers of this movie have intentionally forgotten about. Well, wait a minute. Does 3 even count with? I'm not for sure.
For Dark Fate?
Right.
I think it picks up right after T2. So anything after that.
So T3, all of that
doesn't exist. So they've listened to us on. I know we're always talking about. All right, here are the movies we're totally going. Well, they listened to the box office because after Terminator Genesis bombed,
all right,
there had been plans to turn it into a trilogy, and then they nixed it after Genesis. So when I heard about Dark Fate being on the horizon, I'm like, I was surprised.
Yeah. So
I'm curious to see what they do. And then after hearing that it takes place after T2, they're bringing it back.
What are your hopes? Do you have any expectation? Are you tempering those expectations, or?
Oh, I'm tempering them. I'm not getting my hopes up.
You're not getting your hopes up. Yeah, I think that's probably wise.
Because one of the downsides of being a film knob, as you can testify to, is you kind of know how these things are probably going to go.
Yeah.
Just by the very nature.
Well, look, I'm not a mathematical person very much, but I do, I can figure out percentages. I can look back in history and go, yeah, chances are, probability is, nope.
And we're also victims of memory in a sense, because we have seen, in this case, Terminator 2. And so, again, once the genie's out of the bottle, how do you put that back in the bottle? because either you're trying to appeal to a whole new audience that hasn't seen the Terminator
True,
movies
a
before.
different, that was been a while back, a new generation.
Right. But then you also got to bring on the old fan base.
Right.
That, basically kind of grew up with
so
the Terminator franchise.
You've got to make it somehow at once both fresh and still,
Familiar.
Familiar, right. That's a hard thing to do, obviously. But and thinking about like the Predator, part of it in letting, once you have the big reveal in a movie, it is so hard because, especially, horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
One key ingredient to a successful horror movie is, suspense. And, they used to have it down to, they used to know this, so they don't so much anymore. But, to tease an audience through a good portion of the movie can be a very good thing. To not show, to hold back that reveal as long as you possibly can. If you do it correctly, the suspense, you generate that suspense, and then when you finally do show it, and please, I'm sure they're praying that the payoff is what will reward that expectation. Right. Like think about Jaws. We don't see the shark. We don't see Bruce until a good look at him until about 2/3 of the way through that movie.
Which was a happy accident, right?
Indeed.
Because that wasn't the way it was planned, but they had technical issues with Bruce.
Right.
And so they couldn't do anything. It couldn't perform the way it was supposed to.
Right.
So they ended up, dragging it behind a...
I can't remember all the things that they did, but yeah, I know that, most of the footage they shot initially just wasn't going to scare anybody from all accounts. And so, hey, look, I think neither you or I or many other film knobs out there are going to dare say that Steven Spielberg isn't a genius, right? But, it's my understanding that that's not necessarily how that movie initially, we were going to see that.
Right.
And then because of the poor footage, that actually played a big part in how successful that movie was. When you don't see it until close to the end, then you go, ah!
Which it worked for Alien as well. I mean, it's the same kind of paradigm. But
nowadays, they were smart enough. Alien came about I think 4 or 5 years after Jaws, and I think they definitely looked at that and said, oh yeah.
And speaking of Jaws, fast forward to last year's Meg. Right?
Right.
It's almost like...
Or look at all of the Jaws itself.
True.
Sequels.
So it's like, again, what was once scary has become a joke.
Right. Well, I think that kind of, sometimes that just happens regardless when things change, effects, things that might have looked scary, 30, 40 years ago, are not necessarily, regardless, are not necessarily going to instill fear now. But although Jaws itself to this day, if you look at it, I think that's still a scary movie.
But even comparing Predator with The Predator, okay? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the alpha Predator in The Predator was CG'd more so than a practical effect.
Okay. Well, that would, yeah.
And
stand to reason, I guess.
The Predator of the first original Predator.
The Predator of the first Predator. We're in a legal case.
He was 7, taller than Schwarzenegger, and so the alpha Predator was bigger than this Predator.
Right.
So he was 9 feet tall, and I don't know how many 9 feet tall actors there are, but so they opted to CG the alpha Predator, and it didn't work for me.
Once the reveal is out, then, a lot of times film producers, well, let's just, bigger, and bigger is not better necessarily. It's just not.
And another thing about the Predator is they expected, more Predators to show up because they had, a gallery of alien technology, hanging on the wall, and they were experimenting with how it worked. So they weren't surprised when, a new predator arrived,
right,
on planet Earth, because they've been coming here, and I guess that's the whole legend mystique of the predator alien species, that they've been here forever.
Yeah, forever, yeah.
And so it just kind of, once the genie's out of the bag, you kind of like have to, if you get the franchise going and it's not a reboot, or an alternate dimension, then you got to raise the level of knowledge up, And so I guess they didn't have a choice as far as going with the bigger predator, and he had better technology. And so the technology that the lesser predator had was like lesser technology,
Yeah, sometimes though it just like with that it's just simpler is better. It's well, and take something like again, back to the horror movies. Friday, let's look at Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
The big reveal in that movie. Actually, there's two big reveals at the end, right? You get a double dose. First, you find out that the killer isn't actually, the son. It's the mother has been the one killing everybody, right?
Right.
Second twist, real quick double twist at the end. Jason is still alive, and and then we go on. Then we move on to all of the however many Friday the 13th we've had after that. And the first movie, I'm not a big fan of any of those movies really, but the first at the very least did have its moments, and that twist, both of those twists worked pretty well, I thought. And then the series devolves quickly into, well, let's just, you've got to make the kills more grotesque, bloodier, more outrageous.
Right. Which is the trend. And even in the Predator, it's like, I noticed this when I was watching, I think, Deadpool 2 or Once Upon a Deadpool. I forgot which, but some of the blood effects, you can tell they're CG effects.
Right.
And in the Predator, it's like blood effect, CG, there's some outlandish, his head's popping off. I'm like, really? I mean, it's just...
Well, it becomes more almost for students of, special effects and makeup than it does people wanting to... Most people, I think, they want to be scared when they, go to a horror movie like that. And they're not, gory doesn't necessarily equate to scary.
Or CG gore doesn't necessarily equate to scary, but maybe...
Well, it certainly does.
Compared to maybe like practical gore.
Right. Practical, at least to me, practical gore is much more interesting for me trying to figure out, hey, how did they, how did they do that? But this is kind of symptomatic of everything in a way, right? Everything's just got to be... It's got to be bigger and more of it instead of using what worked really the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's now we've got to amp it up because they've seen that instead of actually having to try to, God forbid, use their noggins to come up with something clever that still keeps it fresh.
Right. So look at something like Final Destination. So the big aha moment is, death is out to get everybody and death always wins, becomes the singular plot device for all the Final Destination movies. So it's not so much you're going to see... It's not such a case of you're going to see what's going to happen, because you know what's going to happen if you've already seen the first, but rather you're going to see how it happens, And that's, I think, where the directors and the producers of the franchise kind of got their jollies is, drawing the audiences in to each setup for how death is going to kill somebody. And it's almost like wink, wink. Hey, we're setting this up or cluing the audience in on how this is going to happen.
Right. It's not, death, unlike, something, death's not going to change. So what's going to change in the movies is the types of deaths,
right?
How they happen. But at the same time, and I don't know how you feel about, have you seen, I know you're not a big horror buff kind of guy, but the same thing applies here. It's, instead of, and some of them are clever, I guess, but they just, for the most part, it seems like it's just bigger, more gross,
or more ridiculous,
or more, yeah. And there comes a point where I think I finally, and I hit this a while back. I've hit the postmodern, where everything indeed seems to be, you're getting winked at. We as the audience are getting winked at because, well, for the most part, the moviegoers are much more savvy and sophisticated than they were, and they're more conscious of what's come before everything, right? So now we're constantly getting winked at, and I'm kind of tired, I'm a little sick of that. I want movies and scripts to be clever enough to just figure out how to scare me again without winking at me. Give me a straight freaking horror movie, right?
So it's like, instead of telling you, hey, you're supposed to be scared, just scare you.
Yeah, right. Just please scare me. Or that I'm supposed to think. I'm supposed to be clever enough to get this, reference to another movie or whatever it is. It's like, all right, we're all kind of getting clever enough to where we can see your references. Don't pat yourself on the back so hard.
Well, it's even like, okay, another thing about the Predator movie that kind of annoyed me was the use of language. I'm not usually bothered by language in movies.
Right.
But when it becomes a substitute for actual dialogue,
right,
and it's like,
and that happens a lot.
How many F-bombs can you drop it, not only just to get the R rating, but to like stretch it out, just to an absurd level to where it loses all dramatic function. It's like your characters really aren't scared because they're dropping F-bombs all over the place, and the F-bombs themselves are so unbelievable that you don't really have a buy-in that the characters are actually scared.
Well, language and cursing, they've got to, it's got to be organic too.
Exactly.
I've got to believe that's how that character talks. And it also can't be used, again, as a crux. It's just to hide lazy writing.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's the same thing with jump scares.
Right.
Our cohort has talked to us about his disdain for jump scares.
Right. I can remember, I had an old college professor one time, and he was always pretty low key, right? And, he'd come into class, he'd talk very quietly and very astutely about literature. And so one morning he comes in, and he gets in front of the class. He doesn't say anything for a little while. We're all kind of looking around. He slowly walks over to this empty desk, and he picks it up and just slams it, and goes, GD it, right? And we're all, what in the hell is going on here, right? He's like, and he goes back to, after he does it, he slams it, he goes back behind his desk, goes, all right, I just want to prove a point, that, cursing, just like anything else, if you hear, you've never heard me curse, if you hear someone curse all the time, it loses its impact when if you're doing it all the time. Mm-hmm. He said, but when you carefully choose, when to use it, how to use it, then it backs up whatever emotion that you're feeling at that time, and that you really understand this person must be upset when they use it. And to me, that's always been a good example of a good reason to be very careful with the curse words. You be inventive about it at the very least.
So the Saw movies, right?
Right.
The first Saw movie, big reveal at the end, terrific reveal, and then every successive Saw movie after that just goes down the rabbit hole. And
well, yeah, because the first movie, while I don't think it's a particularly great movie. It's infinitely better than I think the movies that follow it. Because it did have a good twist, a good reveal at the end, and then it just became about kind of like we're talking about the Final Destination movies. Just the deaths have to be more outrageous and great. It just becomes, and it did become torture porn. Just how gruesome and horrifying can we make each death, and that's it, because you don't care about any of the characters that.
Well, if you're dropping bodies, 20 and 30 at a time, you don't really get a chance for a lot of character development.
No. Yeah, you got to get to it right off the bat, right? Oh man.
But there are times when character development does work to help the reveal, and the reveal helps the character development. I'm thinking of one primary example from Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah, that little movie. Yeah, that's a biggie, and but here's the thing, and my apologies right now to all the Star Wars fans, but it's true. It's still that moment was the high point of that series. It's all been
downhill from there.
Somewhat, yeah. Nothing's ever topped. Honestly, nothing's topped The Empire Strikes Back in that twist.
And I would argue that the second highest point potential, not that it was actually the highest second point, but it could have been, was when you find out why Anakin Skywalker turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader.
Right. However,
that was such a disappointment.
Yeah.
He's rising up like Frankenstein on the.
And you get that cliched overhead shot.
Right.
No. Yeah.
And it's some piped bend. That's about it.
Yeah. It's Yep.
Could have been.
What could have been. No, maybe they'll all turn out okay in December, right? We'll find out.
Disney will, make money either way. So.
It'll be a happy ending for Disney, regardless. So, we've talked about all these movies, these reveals, mainly in horror movies. A lot of times, where, look, if you're going to make these movies have made money, and so therefore you want to continue to exploit that, and they're readily available to have sequels made to them, right?
Right.
And there really isn't much of a way or many more ways they can go with these stories, except for, like we've talked about, make things bigger or bloodier or more,
Or do a prequel, a requel, a sequel,
right,
a reboot.
However, there's been some, there's been some movies that have been successful, right? That have not had sequels made to them, either because the story didn't lend itself to it, or maybe some of the filmmakers and studios decided in their wisdom not to not to destroy a good thing, right?
Well, they haven't figured out how to do it yet.
They still haven't quite figured out. There will be a sequel to Citizen Kane. And, that would, I guess Citizen Kane would be a good point, to that. There is a big reveal, in that movie. The whole thing is a mystery, basically, in a way, right? It's a character study, but a mystery. And the mystery is, what did Charles Foster Kane's last word mean? He whispers Rosebud before he,
Does he have a snow globe in his hand?
He has a snow globe in his hand, and it drops.
And it rolls towards the camera?
It certainly rolls. I can't remember where it rolls. But yeah, that's the opening. And so a reporter is, for one of the news publications, he's going to try to find out what Rosebud really meant. No one seems to know. He travels to all the people who knew Kane best, right? But it seems like nobody really knew Kane as well as maybe they even thought they did. But, and again, I believe this was mentioned we mentioned at the beginning of the show, and on on our feed that spoiler alert here. Okay,
Right.
If you haven't seen this, don't listen to this. But we find out, that Rosebud was his. It wasn't what most people think of, right? Like a person or something, just like overly dramatic, something big. It was his sled.
Mm-hmm. When he was a boy.
When he was a boy. And what it is, you think, well, it's not big, but it symbolized, that sled, symbolized so much. It was the last time that he was happy,
Right.
as a human being, because it symbolized his childhood innocence, which was taken away.
If I remember the big reveal shot, isn't the sled in a fire burning?
They are burning, right? He's acquired so much stuff over the years that good lands, they're having to, destroy a lot of it. And so, the camera pans down for this enormous warehouse, right? And we see all these antiquities and things that he's collected, and there's a furnace there, and this guy picks up something. He throws it into the fire, and the last shot is you see the sled, and on top of the sled is the word Rosebud on it. And so, one of the great last shots in movie history, and one of the great reveals in movie history.
And they haven't made a sequel.
Not yet.
Coming soon to a theater near you, right?
Right. Citizen Kane, The Revenge. Citizen Kane, Last Blood.
Rosebud's Revenge.
And so, like I mentioned, Citizen Kane, is a type of mystery, and mystery along with horror movie, horror movies are really kind of, to me, I guess, the best genres for, reveals. That's what, you're either waiting to see or find out what the monster is, or, waiting to see how to solve whatever mystery has been, put before you. Like, Seven, for instance, a more recent movie, it's, oh my goodness, what's in the box? What's in the box?
What's in the box?
What's in the box? No. Or The Usual Suspects. Is who is Kaiser Sose?
Which both feature.
Which, as a matter of fact, they both feature Kevin Spacey. All right, so I'll hit this tennis ball back to you one more time. American Beauty. It turns out at the end, right, the reveal is, hey, he's.
Spoiler alert.
Right. Again, spoiler alert. He's been dead dead man's been narrating our tale.
Which is not the first, like you said, off mic, that it's not the first time that plot device has been used. Oh,
no. Yeah. There's been, sometimes a reveal, actually. Now, we didn't know that he's dead at the beginning of American Beauty, right? He's just narrating. But sometimes movies can, kind of show at least one reveal at the beginning of the movie. Say like Sunset Boulevard, where our narrator, William Holden's character, is seen floating dead in a swimming pool at the very beginning of the movie. He starts narrating, and we go, wait a minute, hold on. Well, there's no surprise as to what's going here. There's no surprise that is he going to make it or not? Nope, he's not going to make it. And then the mystery becomes, well, how did he get in this? Why is he in the swimming pool? And he tells it the story. So that becomes the new, I guess, mystery.
A similar plot device for Fight Club.
Exactly.
The opening shot, you see Brad Pitt's character, Edward Norton's character with a gun in his mouth.
Right.
And then we book in back to it, and Tyler Durden asked him, have you thought of anything to say, or any last words or whatever,
right.
And Edward Norton says something like he hasn't thought anything, or still doesn't have anything to say, and then Brad Pitt's character Tyler Durden says, "Oh, flashback humor." So,
and off we go. Yeah, that's a pretty good device there. So narration sometimes as a misdirect. To really, so we can really get walloped with, a surprise, a twist at the end.
Right.
A big reveal. But, those, I just kind of wonder if the art of the reveal of suspense, right? It's just kind of going away, and no one seems to, like in trailers. We talked about this before. You know, we're in such a gratify me now, generation or time that people don't mind seeing basically the whole movie or a good portion of the movie shown in the dang trailer, even before you even get in the movie, much less in the movie itself. So,
unless they expect the movie to change,
right? I don't know. I kind of long for the time when it seemed like, I'm one of these. I don't want to read the last page of the book. I don't want to know what happens at the end. I don't want to see, I don't want to see the monster until tease me a little bit, right? Just tease me just a little while. Let me wonder what's going on before you show me the goods.
So how do you think Hollywood can rebound from showing the reveal?
Rebound from...
What's the genie's out of the bottle, the cat's out of the bag, whatever. Once the big reveal's been made, it's like not all movies necessarily lend themselves to being continued.
Right, and not every type of movie, has a big reveal. There's not too many in comedies. You don't have too many like big reveal. Although, well, let's see here, Ace Ventura, right?
That's a big
Finkelman. And that wasn't a gun in his pocket, right? But however, at the same time, if you think about it, Ace Ventura he was a detective solving a mystery. And again, mysteries and horror movies are the movies, that tend to have a lot of reveals. So,
and Ace Ventura had a sequel, but it had no direct tie. It was like another case.
Right. And come through, even some of these. So I was thinking, like, again, thinking back to some of these good movies that we were talking about, like that weren't horror movies, there's Memento, but I was thinking of Chinatown. There's a great reveal at the end of that movie, where Nicholson's trying to find out who, what's really going on, and it turns out, well, I'm her sister, I'm her mother, I'm a sister, and then, well, I'm both. But there actually was a sequel. I forget there was a sequel to Chinatown of sorts, but it was the same way. It wasn't, I don't think it didn't have anything to do with that.
Oh.
It just had to do with the Jake Gittes character that Jack Nicholson played.
So, new case?
New case. That didn't do it. By the way, though, that movie, Nicholson directed it. Wasn't very successful either critically or financially. It was maybe they should just call it Chinatown 2 anyway, right? Because I don't think the Two Jakes was the name of the movie, and that's not.
Oh, I've heard that, but I didn't know it was directly.
Right, yeah, well,
okay.
Maybe a lot of other people didn't know either. But to your point, I guess, like I was talking about, not all movies lend themselves, right, to sequels or have a big reveal but the ones that do, I guess the only thing is and again, we talked about earlier, it's hard to come up with a sequel, to keep a story going sometimes at the level. Look, a lot of those movies, The Predator, we're talking about, or Predator, not The Predator, but Predator, the original Predator, they depend upon that reveal, right? At close to the end of the movie, or in the last third, kind of like Jaws, they depend upon that. And you can't recreate it. You can't do it, usually, unless you're very smart. So you have to make those things, just the only way to do them is make them bigger and, louder and more expensive. And so, I don't know if there is, if there is, other than our writers have got to get more creative, or the film writers have to get more creative, or I was about to say, or they just start doing less of these things. But look, it's a business. As much as we like to talk about the art side of movies, look, in the end,
it's an industry.
It's an industry. Yeah, it's a business. And there's some filmmakers out there that, you know, are more artists, I guess, than craftsmen or you know, than businessmen, however you want to put it. But in the end, as a whole, it's a business, and it's about making money, and it's an expensive business. It's not just a business; it's an expensive business. These big movies, you know, cost a lot of money. So it's the same old story. You know, if you're going to spend a lot of money, you're going to expect, and so what are you going to do? You're going to go with something that's been proven to be successful. This storyline, even though ironically you can't really, you know, you're not going to be able to duplicate story-wise a lot of those successes. You're not going to be able to do it artistically.
And the research I've done, the process for producing films is like there's a green light process for, you know, greenlighting a movie, to approve a movie concept, to move forward with production, or from development to pre-production, production. And part of that greenlight process is doing comps. So if you got a movie idea, then the rule of thumb, I think, is to compare your movie concept to other similar
projects that have been produced in the past, right?
Yeah,
something
like
that you
the
can
past,
concretely look at and go, all right, this is what our movie. Well, it's kind of like Box Office Mojo, right? They on that website, they, you know, just compare once a movie's out. Now, this is once a movie's released. Then what they do, of course, is something comparable, whether it was on the date that was released or the same type of film, right?
And then Hollywood seems to have, I guess you'd call it the 7-year itch, to where it's a 7-year cycle. So you look backwards for, I think, 5 years for your comps, but then you also look out ahead 7 years, and maybe the general public has a 7-year memory, you know. So if something comes out, you know, this year, then maybe they'll forget about it in 7 years. Right. So you can reboot it or massage it, however, you know, since you've already invested a lot of money into this intellectual property, you know, instead of investing even more money in maybe something new, you know, you might give this particular project a shot, either as a sequel, a requel, reboot, whatever, you know.
All right. So are you saying, like, so something successful, 7 years, right? So 7 years from now, someone it's either us or someone else is going to come out with a sequel to this episode, right? Because so obviously it's successful, right? I can feel it. I haven't really listened to it yet, but I'm pretty sure when I listen back to it, I'm going to go, man, that's
it's gold.
Great.
It's gold.
That's gold, Jerry, gold. So I think it's time that we have our big reveal of this show.
Do you think the Nobsters out there can handle the big reveal?
It doesn't matter. It's going to happen anyway. Here we go. The big reveal is I have actually been the Morganator, Rick the Morganator Morgan. And you...
I've been Barry B-Man Benning.
Shocker.
The whole time.
The whole time. We're pretty good, right? I mean, I've been working. I know we've both been working on our voices for 2 weeks now.
Right.
So, this has been a raging success. All right. So, B-Man, would you be kind to tell all the Nobsters out there and all the non-Nobsters how to find us?
Sure. So they can hit us up on social media. We're on Twitter at Film Nobs. We got a Facebook page. We got a Pinterest board. We're on YouTube. And they can find the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and Libsyn.
Thank you, B-Man. And for the second reveal of the end of the show, yes, there's a double twist ending here.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know you are. Our next episode, we're going to talk about the worst songs in movie history. So, Nobsters, please give us suggestions on some of the platforms that B-Man spoke about earlier, and we'll look forward. We would love, I know, look, I've looked into this before. I've got numerous nominations for this, but I'm sure there's others out there that and B-Man haven't thought of. So be sure to hit us up. And until then, take care.